All right, we're still talking about certain prophecies in the book of Jeremiah. And we covered, we keep the names of these kings up there because in your study, your personal study of Jeremiah, when you look at Jeremiah, you'll find that the prophecies will fit into one category of these kings, you know. Josiah was a good king. He made a mistake in that he thought that he could go against Pharaoh Necho and ended up getting killed. But he was a good, reigned for 31 years and was a good king. In fact, he was the last of the good kings in Judah. After he was killed, the people put Joahaz or Shalom in his stead, but Pharaoh Necho objected to that, so he come back and removed him and put his brother Jehoiakim or Eliakim in his stead, and he reigned for 11 years. About 4 of those years, he was subject to Egypt, and then Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar defeated Necho at Carchemish, and then he was the rest of the time he was subject to the Babylonians. The thing about it is that during the course of all the history of these, even to Jehoiachin, they were constantly rebelling. So there was a constant, fact the matter is, there was always having to send somebody to try and straighten these rebellious Jews out. So remember that. After Jehoiakim, remember he was the one that was prophesied that he would have the barrel of a donkey. You know, and that's what ended up happening, you know, that he was evidently he was thrown over the walls of Jerusalem during one siege, and he had the barrel of a donkey, and they elevated his son Jehoiachin to king, and of course when Nebuchadnezzar, not having anything to do with that, he goes and removes him after 3 months and 10 days. You know. And he was a bad king also. Jehoahaz was a bad king. Jehoiakim was a bad king. And the 19th king of Judah, Jehoiachin, was a bad king. And remember that the northern kingdom, they had 19 kings. All of those were bad kings. All of those, the Bible says of them, they did that which is evil in the sight of the Lord. And then the southern kingdom in Judah, there was only 8. If I read, out of 20 kings, there was only 8 that the Bible says that they did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. So overall, neither kingdom did a whole lot in terms of serving God. You know. But now we come to the 20th king in Judah. Remember that Jehoiachin, he was taken to Babylon. We understand that for 36 years he wore prison garb and was in prison in Babylon. And then when evil Marduk took the throne, well, he brought him out of prison and let him eat at the king's table. But he died in Babylon. So now we come to Zedekiah, or Hebrew name Mattaniah. Now he reigned for 11 years. He was a bad king also, and he ended up being taken to Babylon, which is quite a story. But he was the uncle of Jehoiachin. He was the brother of Jehoahaz, and he was also a son of Josiah. So that just kind of lays the kings out. And there is one more that we'll be looking at. Gedaliah was not a king, but he was governor of Judah. We've been looking at him a little bit further into the prophecy of Jeremiah. Let's look at some of the things that during the reign of Zedekiah. I don't know whether Nebuchadnezzar or either Pharaoh Necho, I don't know whether any of them had any of those kings swear that they would serve their kingdom or not. But we do know from Ezekiel that Nebuchadnezzar made Zedekiah swear allegiance to his kingdom. Here's the scriptures that we find in Ezekiel. It says, "Say now to the rebellious house." And that's what Israel had been. All that ever conquered, from the Romans to the Medes and Persians to Babylon, all of them that ever conquered Jerusalem, always had problems with the Jews as a rebellious house, you know. And it says, "Know ye not what these things mean? Tell them, behold, the king of Babylon is come to Jerusalem, and hath taken the king thereof and the princes thereof, and led them with him to Babylon." That's a reference to Jehoiachin. The queen mother was taken, Jehoiachin was taken, all the princes were taken, and they even took all of the people that knew a craft, like that would work with metal or whatever. They took, they were emptying the land of anybody that could be beneficial to the kingdom of Babylon. In verse 13 it says, "And had taken of the king's seat," this is a reference to Zedekiah, "and made a covenant with him, and had taken an oath of him, he had also taken the mighty of the land," making a reference to all of the princes and all of that. So Zedekiah had to swear an oath, you know, to Nebuchadnezzar that he would serve him well. But it wasn't long until Zedekiah decided that he was going to rebel. Being of the same school as his brothers and nephew, decided that he was going to rebel. And this is where it gets interesting as far as Jeremiah, and one of those object lessons that Jeremiah is called upon to teach. You know, Jeremiah was sent to tell him and the other kings that he was joining ranks with, to tell them that they needed to submit to Babylon. And here's how he did it. Chapter 27, verse 2. He said, "Thus saith the Lord to me, make thee bonds and yokes, and put them upon thy neck." That's my understanding that they had two different types of yokes. They had one that you could put on an ox that was just pulling a single thing like a cart, and then they had double yokes. And evidently, from what I can gather, the yokes that probably Jeremiah had to wear was probably one that fit was for a single ox pulling a cart or something like that, and that's what he put on. But he had to make 5 other yokes. Not only the one he had on, but 5 other yokes he had to bring and send them, verse 3. So he says, "And put a yoke upon thy neck, and send them to the king of Edom, to the king of Moab, and to the king of the Amorites, and Ammonites, and to the king of Tyre, and to the king of Zion, by the hand of messengers which come to Jerusalem unto Zedekiah, king of Judah." Now, if you look in your Bible, the very first verse of chapter 27 makes reference to Jehoiakim. There seems to be some type of mistake there, because we see in this verse here that this is all talking about King Zedekiah, not Jehoiakim or Jehoiakim. Yeah. So there seems to be some translation deal there, and most agree that somewhere there's not very many significant translation errors in the Bible, but there are some. And they're not really significant when you find it, because there's enough information that you can determine what is meant. So this is talking about Zedekiah. Now, get the picture. We've got representatives from 5 different nations that have gathered to Jerusalem to meet with Zedekiah. They're all meeting together, and here comes this old prophet with a yoke around his neck. I don't know whether it's dragging or carrying or whatever, but he had 5 other yokes with him. And he brings them in, and he gives to the representatives that have come from these other places, he gives one to each one of them, and has a message for them, you know. It's just one of those things that make you wonder. It takes some real dedication to do some of the things that we see in the Bible that God calls upon a prophet or an individual to do, you know. Like lay on your side for so many days, or run around barefooted and naked for a long time, so forth and so on. But this is what we find here. Jeremiah has come into the court with all of these representatives there, and he's got these yokes. In verse 4 it says, here's what you're to tell them. Here's what you're to tell them, Jeremiah, when you bring that in. And he gives them all these yokes and says, command them to say unto their masters, that when they get back to their country, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, thus shall you say to your masters. And then, knowing and realizing that these other nations have their pagan gods and God or gods or whatever, you know, and the ones that they worship and everything, God has Jeremiah go into an explanation of who it is that's telling them this, because he said, I have made the earth. This is the Lord speaking. The Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. Thus shall you say to your masters, I have made the earth, the man and the beast that are up on the ground, by my great power and by my outstretched arm. I have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me. So God's saying, look, I made everything. I'm the one that created everything. Just to get it all straight now. It wasn't your gods. It wasn't any of those that it's the Lord of hosts of Israel that's sending this message. And I'm the one that created the man. I'm the one that created the beast of the field. And so pay attention, because I am the creator of all things. I also put it in the hands of those that I want to rule it. And that's what he's saying. He said, now have I given unto these lands unto the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, saying, okay, my choice, that's what I do. So I have chosen to put it in the hand of Nebuchadnezzar at this time. The king of Babylon, my servant, and the beast of the field have I given unto him also. I struggle with it. Beast of the field. I guess he's just simply saying everything that's on the land is under Nebuchadnezzar's control. I'm sure that the beast was still wild, and if you met a lion on the road, he probably, whether it was Nebuchadnezzar or somebody else, would still be the enemy. But anyway, I guess he's just simply saying that everything that's on the land is under Nebuchadnezzar's control. And all nations shall serve him, and his son, and his son's son, until the very time of his land come. And then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves on him. He said, God's saying, I got a time set. Nebuchadnezzar is the guy that I've chosen to be my servant during this time, whether he wants to or not. That's a strange thing about the Word of God. God can make a servant out of somebody that's as pagan as they come. But God said, I've got a time set, and so when that time runs out, then the other nations will serve themselves of him. In other words, okay. Jeremiah's come in with this yoke on. He's given these yokes to these representatives, told them, you take it back to your masters, and you give them this word that God has put Nebuchadnezzar in charge. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how you join forces. You can join forces with Zedekiah if you want to, but I put him in charge, and he will be in charge. There's nothing you can do, you know. Then we got another guy that comes on the scene, Hananiah, and he doesn't like Jeremiah's message. He is called a prophet also, but he doesn't like Jeremiah's message. You know, you ever heard a sermon you didn't necessarily like? Chapter 28, verse 1. And it came to pass the same year, in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 4th year, in the 5th month, that Hananiah the son of Azor, the prophet, which was of Gibeon, spake unto me in the house of the Lord, in the presence of the priest and all the people, saying, and we'll get to what he's saying here in a minute. But let me point out something here. It says that and it came to pass in the same year, that's the same year, in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, but it's the 4th year. There are many that believe that one of the parts of the oath that he had to take was that under Nebuchadnezzar, that there was a probation period, a 3-year probation period. That Nebuchadnezzar was saying, Zedekiah, I'm going to put you on the throne, but for 3 years I'm going to watch you. You know, I'm going to keep my eye on you. That's something. And so that's why you see a reference in the beginning of his reign, but it's in the 4th year, because of the 4th year was the year that probation was over. You know, and so he was taken. Okay. We do find that it's in the 4th year, in the 5th month, the month of Ab, on the Jewish calendar. And Hananiah, the son of the prophet, which was of Gibeon, remember, well, I won't go there, let's take up extra. But anyway, spake unto me in the house of the Lord, in the presence of the priests and all the people. So, Hananiah confronts Jeremiah in front of everybody. I mean, Jeremiah walked into a high-level meeting with these yokes. Now we got this guy confronting in front of all the people, you know. And here's what he said. Here's what he said. His message that is going to contradict all that Jeremiah said concerning Babylon and Jehoiachin. Remember, Jehoiachin has been taken off into Babylon, into captivity. Here's his message. Thus speaketh the Lord. This is what this false prophet is saying. God's talking to me, and here's what he told me. The God of Israel saying, I have broken the yoke of the kingdom of Babylon. He's saying, you wear a yoke in here, but here's what God told me, is that the yoke is broken. Within 2 full years will I bring again unto this place the vessels of the Lord's house that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took away from this place and carried him to Babylon. He said, here's what God told me. In 2 years, all of those vessels, the gold, silver vessels, all the things that Nebuchadnezzar carried, that they would be brought back here and put back in the house of the Lord. That's what God told me. 2 years. You know. Then he says in verse 4, I will bring again to this place Jeconiah, which is Jehoiachin, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, with all the captives of Judah that went into Babylon, saith the Lord, for I will break the yoke of the king of Babylon. He's saying, okay, not only all the vessels coming back, but I'm going to bring Jehoiachin back, Queen Mother back, all of the princes back, all of the craftsmen back, And it's going to happen in 2 years. They'll all be back here. Jeremiah is wearing a yoke around and telling all the kingdom you need to submit. In fact, the word of the Lord, God saying, I'm the one that created everything, and I'll put who I want in charge. Okay? Secondly, Hananiah goes and breaks the yoke, takes it off of him and breaks the yoke. Verse 10 and 11 says, Then Hananiah the prophet took the yoke from off the prophet Jeremiah's neck and break it. This is I guess Jeremiah just standing there. Hananiah walks up and just unstraps and takes the yoke off, and not only just takes it off, but he breaks it. And then he again makes the proclamation that he made in previous verses. And I spake in the presence of all the people, saying, Thus saith the Lord, even so will I break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, from the neck of all nations within the space of 2 years. Then again, 2 years we'll be back where we were before. Everything will be restored. We'll have Jehoiachin back on the throne. Everything will be, We got a prophet. We got Jeremiah saying one thing. We got Hananiah saying another thing. I'll say this. A lot of times I take things with a grain of salt, I guess is another way to put it. I heard a prophecy the other day. It's not that I don't believe in prophecies, I do. I believe that God's still in the business of giving prophetic messages, Heard a prophecy the other day that said, America is being restored, and it's coming back to God, and the nation will be great again. We're going to have a move of the Spirit of God in this nation, and the government and everything else will all turn toward God. Now, that was one prophecy. Then I heard another prophecy. America is doomed for destruction. America is going down. And it began to talk. Now, everybody can't be right. That's my point. Is everybody can't be right. And that's what's going on here. We got Jeremiah saying, look, submit to Babylon. Because, hey, you're going to Babylon whether you like it or not. And we got Hananiah coming up and saying, hey, everything's going to be all right. In 2 years, Babylon will be broken. We'll have our king back. We'll have our queen mother back. We'll have all of our craftsmen back. We'll have all of the vessels for the Lord back. We'll be back where we're in 2 years. Yeah. Oh, let me show you. The last part of this gets I don't know, I kind of use my imagination a little bit, but look at the last part of this, verse 11. And the prophet Jeremiah went his way. I mean, sometimes, here's Hananiah with this prophecy that he claims that the Lord of hosts has given him. And he goes and takes the yoke off and breaks it in front of Jeremiah. I guess Jeremiah just standing there. He breaks it. He gives this verse 11 prophecy here, again. And it's Jeremiah just went his way. If you don't have anything to say, you don't have anything to say. I mean, I just kind of vision Jeremiah, I've given these jokes to these representatives. I've sent them back, to their masters and everything. This guy comes up, he gives this prophet, he breaks the yoke that I got. I ain't got anything else to say. And he goes his way. Point being is that he don't have anything to say until God gives him something to say. Yeah. When God does give him something to say, it's not too good for. I want you to notice something. The false prophecies and what it's going to make it tougher on Judah. What's the verse here? Verse 12 says, "Then the word of the Lord came unto Jeremiah. He went his way, but when the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah, the prophet, after that Hananiah, the prophet, had broke the yoke from off his neck, or off the neck of the prophet Jeremiah, saying, Go and tell Hananiah." So I don't know where he had gotten to. I don't know, whether it was down the road or whether it was the next day or whatever. But he said, go and tell him. So he got to turn around from wherever he is and go back. He's got a message for Hananiah. Go tell Hananiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Thou hast broken the yokes of wood, but thou shalt make for them yokes of iron. I thought about this. When you began to, the thing is, remember that he was giving this prophecy in front of all the people, and everybody was hearing what he was saying. False hope was being raised in that. But God said, look, you made it worse for them. You made it worse from what your prophecy, because thou shalt make for them yokes of iron. Then in verse 14 says, For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I have put a yoke of iron upon the necks of these nations, that they may serve Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, and they shall serve him, and I have given him the beasts of the field also. There's that phrase again. Point being, that does his false prophecy make it tougher on the people? Evidently so. Yeah. But that's not all. Jeremiah's not through. Verse 15 to 17 says, Thus saith the prophet Jeremiah unto Hananiah. He said, Hananiah, your prophecy is going to affect the people in this way, that now it's going to be a yoke of iron on all of the nations. But then he says, I'm not through. Hananiah, here now, I got a message for you. The Lord hath not sent thee, but thou makest this people to what? Trust in a lie. So that's what makes it tougher on these people here, because Jeremiah said, y'all submit to Babylon, because God has ordained that Babylon punish this nation for the 70 years that's been allocated. So submit to them until God's time is over, and He's also told them there will be a time of restoration, a time of bringing you back. But then this guy comes along and said, no. 2 years, everything's going to be back. So if false hope, going to make it tougher when Babylon comes in. And finally takes all of them away. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will cast from off the face of the earth this year. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will cast thee from off the face of the earth. This year thou shalt die, because thou hast taught rebellion against the Lord. That's tough. Judgment's coming on Hananiah. Actually, he died 2 months later. So Hananiah the prophet died in the same year, in the 7th month. Remember, it was during the 5th month that all these prophecies were in the month of Now, it's saying that Hananiah died in the 7th month, the month of Tishri. So, he didn't last long. You don't mess around with God. You don't make stuff up. Serving God is serious business. It's not a plaything. It's not something you just generate because you think, in a little bit we'll see where God talks about some dreams, but in the way, but I mean, the point being is that, look, Hananiah not only affected the people that he's, but it also brought judgment on his own life. God said, oh, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Jeremiah also, now remember, there's a lot of people that have been carried off to Babylon. Ezekiel prophesied from Babylon. There was just a lot of people that had already been. There were 3 different times that they set siege to Jerusalem. First being in 605 BC, when actually Nebuchadnezzar had actually just defeated Pharaoh Necho, and his father had died, and on his way back after defeating him, he took Judah on the way back to assume the throne in Babylon. So and then there was 2 more sieges that took, and the one under Zedekiah. The time that Nebuchadnezzar finally took Jerusalem under Zedekiah is when he destroyed Jerusalem. I mean, they flattened Jerusalem and the temple. Anyway, but there are people already in Babylon, and Jeremiah sends a message to them. And here, chapter 29 says, now these are the words of the letter that Jeremiah the prophet sent from Jerusalem unto the residue of the elders, which were carried away captive, and to the priests, and to the prophets, and to all the people who Nebuchadnezzar had carried away captive from Jerusalem to Babylon. Then he kind of gives a clarification. After that, Jeconiah, the king, and the queen, and the eunuchs, this is Jehoiachin, the queen mother, and all that were carried away under his reign. It says, and all the eunuchs and the princes of Judah and Jerusalem and the carpenters and the smiths were departed from Jerusalem. This is after that, by the hand of Elisha, the son of Shaphan, and Gemariah, and the son of Hilkiah, whom Zedekiah, king of Judah, sent unto Babylon to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, saying. So what happens is he writes down, writes a letter, writes a prophecy, and he sends it and we're out of time. Okay. I'm going to stop right there, and I'll just pick up right there when we start next time, okay?